So you're on the Foreign Relations Committee, as I say. What is your take on the likely effect of these sanctions?
Well, you know, when it comes to Iran, the thing we have to remember before we even get into the nuclear issue is that Iran today is the biggest funder of state-sponsored terrorism. They fund Hezbollah in Lebanon. They fund Hamas. They've been responsible both in Yemen and Syria for incredibly destabilizing behavior. So I would like to see the United States lead a worldwide coalition in terms of going after the funding that Iran provides for these terrorist acts. We've had, by the way, in the Foreign Affairs Committee, overwhelming bipartisan support for legislation to do this. Some previous legislation has passed. I think that this is an area where the administration, if they wanted to, could lead in a bipartisan way. Unfortunately, President Trump just seems to be really obsessed with reversing anything the Obama administration has done, whether it's on foreign and domestic affairs. And so he is focused primarily on undoing the things that President Obama did, rather than attempting to forge bipartisan consensus to go after current bad Iranian behavior.
Fair enough, but one of the things that President Obama did not manage to get done is exactly what you're urging now. I mean, this issue with state-sponsored terrorism from Iran has been going on for years and years, and the United States has not been able, either by itself or with others, to bring it to a stop. Why do you think it could work this time?
Yeah, well, as you pointed out, this has been going on for years, and frankly, it wasn't a problem that started under President Obama's watch either. This has been a failure of administrations of both parties. It will take not just U.S. sanctions, but international sanctions as well. Give the previous administration credit. Then Secretary of State Clinton was able to bring the British, the French, the Germans, as well as the Russians, along to join us in a sanction regime against Iran. That's what brought them to the table. Unfortunately, today, the president has acted in such a unilateral fashion that, ironically, he has made the United States the pariah in that group and not Iran. That is a mistake. We need to make sure that we act in a diplomatic way if we're going to have sanctions that will really have teeth. That's something that President Trump has shown no interest in doing.
And yet the president does want to sit down with President Rouhani. Could that make sense if, on top of just withdrawing from the nuclear agreement with Iran, he tries to build some other form of agreement that would encompass all of the issues that you've just raised?
Well, if North Korea is the example of that, I'm not too optimistic. I'm still waiting to see what exactly we got out of our sit-down with the dictator of North Korea. President Trump has this odd habit of ratcheting tensions up, bashing a foreign dictator, and then 6 months later sitting down, talking to him, achieving nothing but a photo op, and then declaring success, and suddenly the world is at peace. So if that's what his interest is in repeating in Tehran, I don't exactly see what that would achieve.
What would be the geopolitical repercussions of further isolating Iran? Because the U.S. is also contending with Russia. Could they become closer to Russia and pose a bigger threat?
That's a fair point, although one thing that I want to point out that actually gives me the greatest reason for hope, and that is the protests that we're seeing on the street in Iran, not just in Tehran, but throughout the country. I actually think that here in the West, we should give them more coverage. These are brave, ordinary Iranians taking to the streets, distraught by the fact that their currency has dropped 80% of its value over the last year. That's projected to continue. Really, in my view, in addition to whatever the U.S. or any other country may do, if the Iranian people themselves can spark real change internally, that probably gives us our best prospect for changing this regime's behavior and possibly ultimately seeing its downfall.
Congressman, let's turn to a different regime, Russia, if we could. Are you satisfied at this point that the administration, perhaps finally, you might say, is coming around to the position that we really do need to do everything within our power to stop their possible interference in the elections coming up this coming November?
No, I'm not satisfied at all. In fact, by the admission of the head of our intelligence agencies, still to this day, 18 months, 19 months in office, President Trump has yet to give the order to our intelligence agencies to develop a strategy to counteract Russia's behavior. You know, if you look at Georgia, if you look at Ukraine, it is clear that Russia is the aggressor in those areas militarily. They've been the aggressor with us, with France, with Germany, also with Ukraine when it comes to interfering with our democratic elections. As someone who will have my name on the ballot in a few months myself, like every other member of Congress, I'm very concerned that they are continuing this. We've had the head, the director of national intelligence outright say that the red lights are flashing. And we have not seen this president in any way make it a priority. That is wrong. We need the president to act as the American president first and a Republican second.